Hello everybody, what's up? You're listening to I Was Just Wondering with me, Tom Salmon, the show that dives into music, film and games, and everything else in between. My guest on this week's show is Jack Carroll, the stand-up comedian, writer and actor hailing from West Yorkshire, England. We jumped into Jack's starring role in the British comedy Eaten by Lions, released in cinemas across the UK on the 29th of March. His experience of being the youngest ever stand-up comedian on Britain's Got Talent and being blocked by the footballer Stan Collymore on Twitter. So, if you're running, stuck in a traffic jam or sitting behind a desk at work, hope you enjoy my interview with Jack. You're on the promo tour for Eaten by Lions, so how's it been going so far?
Yeah, well, as we were just talking about, I haven't Liam Neeson'd it yet, so there's still, like you said, there's still time for that to happen.
Yeah.
But no, I think the film seems to be really, have been sort of broadly positively received. So I think when you're chatting to people about it as well, it's nice that warmth seems to be reciprocal. So yeah, it's been good fun, man.
So where have you been? So I noticed you went to the Edinburgh, was it Film Festival with it? Have you been to any other sort of like festivals?
So we after Edinburgh, we went to a smaller festival in Luxembourg.
Okay.
Which was quite cool to see Luxembourg and, scope out a tax haven if I ever need it for future. I hope they don't listen to this because they were really nice and I didn't. I managed to go the whole week without mentioning it being a tax haven.
The tax haven. Yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool, and it was sort of because Luxembourg's not really a country I think you would think of visiting. So it was really quite a cool experience to see somewhere that was so close to France and Germany and Belgium. So that was great. And then we moved on to the Dinard Film Festival in Dinard in France. So
right.
And there was a big sort of appetite there for British film, and that's so it was great to. Even though my French is not great, I sort of understood that the locals were receiving the movie positively, which was quite a nice thing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, they always say that in terms of like comedy films, sometimes they sort of struggle to like translate to really sort of like break out because I think like humor is so like, especially with comedy, it's so unique to the place where it comes from in a way.
Yeah, that was the translation aspect of it. I think was the funny thing because the sort of dramatic beats of the film seem to resonate a little bit more than they did over here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they seem to be more into the sort of the human aspects of the story a little bit more, which I suppose if you're if English isn't your first language, you even though there were subtitles, you sort of forced to pay attention a little bit more, I think, aren't you?
So, just for the listeners at home, I'm sure you've been asked this a few times. So, what's your elevator pitch for Eaten by Lions for people who don't know what the film's about?
My elevator pitch for Eaten by Lions. Well,
yeah,
it's about two half brothers, right? One white and one Asian. I'm playing the white one, typecast again. And basically, our parents die. So we go to black. It's about the white brother's name is Pete and the Asian brother's name is Omar, right? So and basically the other lad is played by the brilliant Antonio Akil. So basically, those two characters' parents die, and then Omar finds out that the guy is not his real dad. So we set off to Blackpool in search of his real dad.
It's an interesting premise, Eaten by Lions, but the characters' parents actually being literally eaten by lions at the very beginning of the movie. I guess it's not a spoiler to sort of say that.
No, and you don't actually see it, unfortunately.
No, you don't. No. Yeah.
Although I did call for a little bit of gore and a head being ripped off, but unfortunately the budget didn't stretch. So.
I imagine just a really like almost a horror movie-esque sort of like prologue of these poor couple being savaged.
I went to the fancy dress shop and bought a suit and everything, but unfortunately they didn't go for it. So yeah,
no.
I mean, or if it's just like the same suit as the Wizard of Oz lion, and it doesn't really carry any dramatic impact at all.
No, it would be rather odd. There's sort of like rather friendly-looking lion tearing this young couple to pieces.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's sort of there's a few deaths in the first opening few
Mm.
minutes, and then it gets gradually lighter and funnier from there on in.
Sort of evens out because they are dealing with the death of their grandmother. So as you said, you do play Omar's sort of half brother, and it's interesting that actually you have a really endearing on-screen relationship with
Mm.
Antonio. Was that something that you really had to work with him sort of like beforehand, or was it just that you turned up, he did the lines, and it was just kind of there already?
Yeah, we well, me and Anto, it's a funny one. We've had a couple of projects unrelated to this one that we've sort of been nearly about to work on and we haven't worked on. So I knew Antonio
Oh, okay.
before he auditioned for this one. But yeah, I think, if you're having a good time making a film and you like the people that you're working with, I think that really translates on screen, or hopefully it does. Yeah, so I would say for everyone in the cast, really,
Mm,
it was a real communal effort and therefore a pretty natural process without too many stumbling blocks in terms of on-screen chemistry and things.
right.
But Jason, the director, likes to do a lot of rehearsal and a lot of
Oh, okay.
messing around, which I think helps with chemistry also.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm assuming this is like an independent film because you're not necessarily with independents, you don't necessarily get that much time to rehearse.
We did a lot in a room in Manchester in the weeks leading up to. So we didn't do a
Oh,
lot of rehearsal on
okay.
set, but
Right.
we got a couple of days in a room in Manchester before we began shooting, just to try and work scenes out and what the sort of the emotional heart of the thing was. And I think this is Jason's bread and butter, really. So
Mm,
he's quite used to
right.
working in that setup, so it made it easier for everyone else.
How did you become involved with the film?
It's funny. Eaten by Lions is one of those sort of signifiers of significance for me, really, because
Right.
I was involved in the. So Jason made a short film in 2013 called Going to Mecca,
Right.
which was basically, give or take, it's the first 10 to 15 minutes of
Oh,
Eaten
I
by
see.
Lions,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which but that's got a different actor playing Omar. It's got Akib Khan in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically it's just an elaboration of that story, really. So I've been on board from the very beginning, and like
Oh, right.
it's great as a stand-up as well, because
Yeah.
it's that means it's a sort of highly collaborative process, and Jason don't mind you throwing lines in, I think, because you know the characters quite well and what they
Well,
would do. So
I guess like at that point, since you were there at the very beginning, like you are the character, so I guess you've got a more ethereal voice over what that character would do and say.
yeah, I mean, I like to draw a distinction, but between me and the character of Pete, who is
Mm.
a sarcastic, semi-annoying, disabled teenager, but not a huge. It's not a huge distinction to make, unfortunately.
Yeah. That is it is interesting because I think like maybe from the outside it's very easy to draw the parallel like oh you're just like playing yourself,
Mm.
but I mean that's something I did want to kind of like get into because obviously growing up in like the north of England, like approaching the character of Pete in a sense of humor. I mean you are also credited on this movie as also writing additional material.
Mm.
Humor in the north is different from the south, I'd say, in terms of just like their POV on life.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of weird Zen quality to humour in the North. Like,
Mm,
I think there's yeah, it's a sort of indescribable, but I do understand, what you mean. I think there's an enjoyment of it, I think, in the North. And that's the same in the South. It's not a generalisation thing, but I think we do. And we also, enjoy reveling in language here and stuff. I think that as well.
yeah.
The sort of use of language is slightly different, and you
Mm.
might get a few more bits of interesting vocabulary than maybe you would as much down south.
Yeah, you definitely would get some different colloquialisms
Mm.
that would sort of like distinguish, I guess, like between like South and North. And also, I think like, again, like not meant to generalize, but I think like they find more humor in the sort of mundanity of life. I mean, obviously, like landscape is sort of like different. I mean, I guess
Mm.
geographically, I guess there are those very sort of stark differences.
Yeah, I think it probably is like as historical implications, doesn't it, as to what
Yeah.
what we did do as opposed to what we're doing now, and that sort of carries down the
Mm.
generations,
Yeah.
really, doesn't
True.
it?
True.
Um, yeah. Anyway, we've done a bit of history there as well.
We have a bit, yeah.
I mean, anyone who's writing a PhD or at university, do not include any of that, because it might be a load of old rubbish. But yeah, it sounded good.
It did sound, yeah, it was definitely top notch. How long actually was the production?
So we had a few pickup days, which were sort of quite spaced out, but the initial shoot, I think, was about a month and a half. I could be wrong. It all blurred really into one sort of long thing.
Right.
So I could be way out with that date, but I'm sort of, I was about to say that's the number I'm getting, like some sort of crass stage psychic. But yeah, that sounds about right.
What was your sort of like toughest day on set, emotionally and sort of like physically? I'm kind of thinking like the sort of beach stuff and the car chase.
There's it was nice. It's nice as an actor though, because I think on a lot of jobs, because I would prefer to be doing stuff rather than standing around waiting for setups and things.
Right.
So actually, like, I think ultimately the sort of high octane type of thing energizes me more than if it's just a scene with dialogue. But there was certainly a lot to do. Like, yeah, that scene on the when the tide's coming in, or with the little car chase bit, that because you're actually getting water thrown over your head and stuff, which isn't a great feeling.
I can imagine.
But then again, yeah, after the fifth time, where you're going, have we got to do this again?
Yeah.
Or is this just some sort of cruel bet at my expense?
Yeah.
But I think that helps you to sort of simulate the emotion a little bit more, and helps with performance. So
I like this scene that really sort of stuck out for me is when you and Omar are walking across the pier, and he's walking way ahead of you, and you're like, "Oh, please slow down," and then you go into that whole bit.
Yeah,
about how it's kind of like
that bit
exploiting you.
Yes, I improvised that whole thing, and Jason director was driving along in a cart next to us shooting, and out the corner of my eye as I was doing that monologue, I could he'd started to cry with laughter. So I just kept going, and that was basically lighting the touch paper. Really, I just kept going and ramping it up to an even more offensive level. And yeah, that was a great day, man. That was a really good day.
That really made me laugh. It's so in keeping with the film, but you think like, well, is that actually like written, or is that just like, it's just of the scene?
We knew we wanted to do something like that, and then it's just about finding the opportunity and where it lies, really. Right. Because we'd put that idea in the original short film.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, we knew we wanted to repeat it, but it's just about finding out where it would fit.
So, jumping back a little bit, just to recap your sort of history in a way, and I was surprised because you started performing when you were, was it 11?
Yes, yeah.
And like, so I watched the famous sort of stand-up gig you did at your mum and dad's civil wedding anniversary in 2010.
Lovely stuff.
And it's funny because your dad introduced you with "Give me 5 minutes for Jack's strange humour." Yeah. And I was just thinking, like, now looking back on it and the success you've had, but it's such like a parent thing to kind of sort of say in a way.
Yeah.
I was really sort of taken with your stage presence and just how you got into it. Like it seemed like effortless. And I just wondered in terms of the prep work.
Yeah, well, I'd had the idea of doing a performance there a couple of weeks before. And my cousin did script writing at university, so he sort of helped me with all the structure of the set and the performance aspect of things. So he was hugely helpful in sort of getting me ready for that. And yeah, I'd always, like, from being 6 years old, I'd always wanted to sort of do some form of comedy writing, something like that.
Yeah.
And so that seemed like a good opportunity to start, really. And yeah, I mean, you look back and go, oh, that's a really significant moment, because that kicked so many other things into motion. So, I've got to be grateful to my mum and dad too for actually allowing it at what could have been, what could have ruined the occasion, really. But, thankfully.
I thought silver is that 25. I'm trying to think what that.
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
But it worked out. And also it was interesting around that time in 2010. I'm trying to think in terms of like social media and like Vine and like YouTube and stuff, because I was thinking like, had you like done it like say like today and the implications of like something like that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fortunate aspect of the whole thing, but it sort of went comfortably viral, where it was like it got to about by the time that the local news had picked it up, and then I went on to do other things because of that. It got to about 25,000, 30,000 views after, whereas I think that's a lot more of a manageable thing than say if it had gone crazy straight out the gate. I think as well I'm sort of grateful for the gradual build up of that video and then on to Britain's Got Talent, and that I was able to dip my toes in the water, so to speak, before anything too crazy happened.
Yeah, you had like a nice good. You had like a nice. I mean, you did have like a nice progression, because the way I've sort of tracked the timeline is you did that. Then I think was it Jason Manford saw the video and then invited you to perform or open for him.
Yeah.
And that was I think it's around the same time that you won the Pride of Britain Award for Teenager of Courage. I hope I'm getting that right.
Yeah. So I won that. I won that about 2 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was 2012, and I opened for Jason at the sort of end of 2010, I think.
Did you go like 6 months or like a year or something without actually performing, or did that sort of video hit and you're like, right, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to start performing?
I was on. I got a role on a kids show for CBBC with Vic Reeves.
Right.
Which sort of happened in the in-between phase.
Oh, okay.
Which was great, because even then I'd sort of grown up watching Vic and Bob, so that was huge thing for me. Yeah.
I just watched a short clip of it today about the episode when they're this girl rings up and asks who's better, boys or girls, and then Vic Reeves and the other dude just dance around as peacocks.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun for all the family, I think. Yeah.
It still kept his level of surrealism, because I was watching it because I was thinking like Shooting Stars and the sort of like real, I guess, like alt comedy that he was sort of like known for. Would that carry through to like a children's show? And I was like, yeah, that's him. So working on that show, like, what did you learn about watching, I guess, a comedy legend work?
That gave me a good grounding in how sort of physically demanding the job is. I mean, not that we're fighting fires or any of that that sort of thing, but it's long hours, and you've got to. I think the main thing I learned from watching Vic Reeves there was like give every take the same energy as if you're doing it for the first time.
Right.
Make sure to keep that energy up throughout the day, which is why I'm now have to resort to speed.
Old school.
Old
diet pills.
I hope nobody writes that down, because they'll just surgically remove the sarcasm from it, and then it'll be chaos.
There will be like confesses to speed addiction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the internet outrage culture will destroy me. But no, I think so it gave me that sort of grounding of like, you've got to take pride in the things that you're doing, I think, and give it the same energy all the way through.
I think that's one of the things that people don't realize about performing on camera or on stage. They think you just like turn up and then you just say stuff, not that you've got to, create an internal energy that has to translate and you have to sort of like project. Especially you have to give something and also maintain that level of commitment throughout, which, that's why, I mean, I can only imagine any sort of like performer who comes off stage is sort of like physically drained. Well, they should be if they are sort of like committed to the work. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, go ahead, man. I think that just about summed it up.
So just jumping back to the gigs. So with the sort of like stand-up, they say that basically any audience will give you a minute and then you've got to be funny. So I was just wondering, in terms of when you first did those gigs with Jason, I mean, how much stage time did you get? I mean, clearly you're funny, and you can command an audience. And what was that like? And did anybody like heckle? Have you had to like shut down people like heckling you or any of that kind of sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I didn't really I didn't start gigging solidly until pre-Britain's Got Talent. So
Right.
when I was opening for Jason around sort of 2010, 11, I was doing little gigs at when people asked me rather than comedy clubs, so
Right.
that sort of changed. As far as heckling and that sort of thing, I mean, it's happened a couple of times, and I do enjoy the sport of it. But I think on the whole, I sort of try and present a pleasant demeanour, so it didn't really invite heckling as much.
Right. I see.
And that's not really a conscious thing, but I think being a sort of 20-year-old as I am, if I went on to the stage acting like I knew all the answers, that maybe wouldn't be the greatest look in the world. So I think I do project a sort of a spirit of hopefully that I'm there to learn as much as anything. So I think that helps to ward off hecklers. Cut to my next gig tomorrow, and it'll just be a sea of bottles and rotten fruit, and I'll be ducking and trying to run off the stage. Yeah.
That is interesting though, because I never really thought about that in terms of the type of comedy that you're presenting. I mean, if you're very confrontational and aggressive, that invites a similar sort of response from the audience. But if you are kind of like there and you're doing your sort of stuff, and you just say you are sort of like pleasant and polite, you'd have to be kind of a real sort of like dick. I mean, especially like when you started out, like heckling like an 11-year-old on stage. I can't imagine anybody's going to win many points for that. In fact, like you're probably going to lose them.
No, that would be it'd be funny if I just went at 11, if I just went like, all right then, get up here, I'll knock you out.
Exactly.
Just done that. I think that might have shocked them. But no, I do try and make the comedy an inclusive atmosphere, in the sense of I'm inviting the audience in, and therefore I expect a level of respect back.
Right.
As much as anything, I try to do that. But it's good to not like over intellectualize the process either.
True. Your Britain's Got Talent entry, I've watched the first set that you did, and it just seems to me the whole process seems to be like competing at like a high level sort of like sporting event like the Olympics or something, because you have all that sort of like pageantry and pressure and attention on you, and also you could get like knocked out. How did you handle that pressure and attention on you, because it is very like make or break, like you have like your 3 minutes?
Yeah, I think youth was on my side in that sense, that I was pretty fearless, I think.
Right.
I would say so I actually relished that sort of spectacle of things,
right,
and thought this is quite exciting, and that's sort of, I think, one of the advantages of youthful exuberance, that you don't necessarily think of all the variables as I would. I'm talking like I'm 50 years old. I'm only 20, but it's 7 years you start to develop like, I wonder if this happens or whatever. Whereas I didn't really have that then. I just sort of blustered through and went along with the process, and enjoyed and relished that sort of spectacle and slight competitive edge to things.
And you did a fair old roast of like Simon Cowell there as well, and he seemed to take that in pretty good spirits as well.
Thankfully, because I mean, I'm sure he could have me killed if he wanted to.
I think he's rich enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think my head on a spike would be but a drop in the ocean for Simon Cowell. But I think I think the people working on the show and the judges like it if you subvert the whole process and give the show a little bit of make the show a little bit of a send up of itself, really, because Britain's Got Talent doesn't take itself too seriously, which is what I liked about it, I think.
Right.
And if you can sort of play with that format and play with the power dynamics at work there, then I think that creates quite an interesting thing.
And it's a very broad audience as well, because I was just thinking about it today, like so if you're playing a comedy club, it's a very sort of specific sort of, I guess, audience, but that one it's like kids all the way to like sort of like grandparents, so you just play to everyone. I think like what terrific sort of like platform to be able to hit like every demographic at once and have millions of people watch you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think a lot of people from the outside in see just think of it as some sort of nefarious reality TV machine that's there to bleed people dry and don't really care about the human impact. That is not like my experience of that show at all.
Right.
What I found was a load of people trying to make the best product they could make, and try and help you as much as possible. And it is that, like, I'll be forever grateful to that show for that huge platform that they gave me that has allowed me to make a career out of doing the thing that I love, really. So yeah, I'm forever grateful for that, that huge broad platform.
Because you're push at such a level, you're such at the forefront of, say, like culture, and then I always think like, well, afterwards, then I mean, not in your case because obviously you were working and you were doing things before, but I know for like some people, and it's like the idea that somebody can walk off the street like a taxi driver, can sing this sort of like beautiful song, win. And then you're like, well, that was good. But then you actually have to put the hard work in, like creating a career, going out there, auditioning, getting the jobs, like doing the gigs.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that perhaps when people sort of fall off or they don't understand, they're like, well, that's brilliant. But then you've got to put the hard work in.
I would say that. And just having the, they said, have you got any advice? I did a thing from the other week, and they said, have you got any advice for anyone that's thinking of applying? And I think it would be, enjoy the experience, but then also have the foresight to be able to. They give you a platform, and it is what you make of it. So
yeah,
it's a blank slate, and then it's what you make of it. So just have I think having the foresight to use the platform to your advantage is a huge part of the process.
So it might be a sore point here, but I know you were beaten in the final by the dance group Attraction.
Yeah,
and I was
as Jason, the director, reminded me almost every day on the shoot.
I don't think, well, I mean, I wonder how you feel about this, but actually winning the show, I don't think it would have potentially changed your career too much from where it is now, because it seems to be in a great place. Whereas like, I should have Googled them to see what they were doing now, but especially with like dance groups, because they can kind of be sort of like faceless as well. They're kind of, if you lose a member, you get another member in if there's 30 of you.
Yeah.
Obviously the winning would have been better for your bank balance, but do you think you would have got more opportunities from that perhaps?
Well, it might be a case of cognitive reframing or whatever, but it's funny you mention that, because if I had won, I would have been contractually obliged to go and do a load of press days for Britain's Got Talent, which would have stopped me from shooting the short Going to Mecca, which was the short version of Eaten by Lions. So I probably wouldn't be there wouldn't had I won the show, Eaten by Lions probably wouldn't exist. So
oh wow.
Or certainly not in this form. So so that's I think a blessing in, well, not necessarily in disguise, but I think is a lucky thing that you look back and you go, oh, that's a significant moment, actually, because if I hadn't got that, then that wouldn't have led to this, etc., etc. So
that's interesting. Yeah, you would have, I guess, like you would have been spending that prize money on like Ferraris or something, or
Yeah, well, I think maybe just like a sort of golden walking frame is what I would say with it.
Blinged out like your platinum bust out with a few diamonds on there as well. Nice.
Tim Westwood Pimp My Ride style walking frame, which I think is what Stephen Hawking did with his wheelchair.
It got progressively more and more high tech as his books sold more.
Yeah, 28-inch alloy wheels.
Yeah, like
and a spoiler.
Both sound system. No.
But yeah, so Eaten by Lions probably wouldn't exist in this form. And I would rather have I think worked with a director that I really like working with, and a great cast, and have a movie that we're all really proud of at the end of it, than won a talent competition at 13. Not to be too flippant about things, because obviously I'm grateful for the platform, as I've said.
Yeah. And at the time, I remember you saying, I think I watched an interview with the Loose Women, that they said afterwards they were asking you signed like a book deal with Simon Cowell's like production company, and I'm quite sure you just said it would have just basically been you in bed eating crisps. So I just want to touch on like growing up with like your disability. What was your childhood like?
I think it'd be different if I hadn't got cerebral palsy, and then somehow I had got it. But the thing is, I've never known anything different. So I've got nothing to compare it to, really.
Right.
So I don't think it was a case of people telling me I was different as much as trying to find certain things out for myself. But luckily I'm not too badly afflicted. But it's I think it's a case of I've never known anything different.
Right.
So I've got nothing to compare it to, and actually I'm hugely grateful for the cerebral palsy, because probably early on I wouldn't have developed the the verbal skills and the communication skills that have helped me to do comedy and all that sort of thing. So I'm grateful for it in that way.
I mean, that's a really interesting point, because I was thinking about the disability and about that, and I was thinking like there's not many, like I was thinking of like 11-year-olds that could do what you do, you know what I mean, like in terms of like your performance, taking sort of stage, writing jokes and performing. I mean, that's really sort of like exceptional, but it's like, I guess like it's born out of fine-tuning or building other sort of like skills perhaps to sort of navigate through life.
Absolutely. I think it's I think and it's more interesting to think of it like that as well. I think whether that's the case or not, but obviously I'm hugely appreciative of the my family, the early support network and confidence they gave me in sort of pursuing an enjoyment of talking to people and making people laugh, and that sort of response that I got from, because everyone in my family likes a laugh, and that's sort of the main thing in our lives, really, is having a laugh with each other. And I think that's a thing that I'm grateful for, and that getting that early encouragement as a youngster, like a real youngster, like 3-4 years old, that I could actually do that and make people laugh and communicate well, was a huge part of setting me on the journey.
Were you making your parents laugh at 4 years old?
Yeah.
Really? You were like doing bits and comedy bits for them?
Yeah,
probably.
Oh my God. Probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's what was going on around me, so it just sort of seemed natural that I would sort of do that, really.
So you are 20 now, 7 years deep in the comedy game. So how are you finding the life of being like a professional sort of stand-up and sort of traveling around?
Yeah, I'm now a battle-weary alcoholic. No, I like it, man. The logistics of stand-up comedy, the traveling and the getting places and things can sometimes be a little bit of a pain and take the shine off the work a little bit. But I'm careful with the gigs that I choose, that they're not too taxing in terms of travel and things.
Right.
The actual work, I really enjoy, and I think the stand-up is the sort of main. It's something that I might not enjoy as much as I enjoy the writing or the acting some of the time, but I think stand-up is a hugely important bedrock, as it's the thing that all that other stuff springs from. So it's got the performing demands of acting and the writing demands of writing comedy as well. So it's the thing that it's the discipline that combines the two of the things that I enjoy doing. So it's huge to sort of keep my hand in with that, I think.
And I actually did Google where you're playing on Thursday, so I can give you a wee plug. was it? It was the courtyard at. I'm probably going to probably pronounce this wrong. Was it
Yeah,
Wixley? Is that right?
Wickersley. Yeah,
Wickersley, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in. It's mainly the north, but I'm in central London, sort of 2 or 3 days out of the month usually.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll do gigs when I'm in London town as well, which is quite nice because I think the audiences you get comfortable with northern audiences as they're usually quite warm and receptive.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice to go down and sort of go out in a comedy club in Leicester Square and see the front row with their arms folded, going, "We could have gone to Mamma Mia, but we didn't. We came here instead. So you better be funny."
That is true because you have your audiences and you know you're going to kill no matter what. And then I guess there's the audiences when you kind of have to work where they're just like indifferent and you have to warm them up.
Yeah.
So that's it. And I guess like that's the art, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's definitely it. And I think what you find from performing in a major city like London is there's usually 3 people in the gig from Canada going, "Why is he talking about Coronation Street? What's Coronation Street?" And therefore you're forced to adapt, I think. Then
I was sort of fascinated by the fact that you were in front of David Williams and he calls you like a comedy genius. And then a year later, you're working with him on an episode of Big School. I'm assuming he's like one of your comedy idols and has played a big part of your career. What was it like actually working with him as a sort of like a colleague or peer, if you will, on that episode?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of deeply grateful to David as well because he's, given me a lot of advice and guidance after Britain's Got Talent as well. So we've stayed in touch. But as far as that episode of Big School went, he just basically said, "Do you want to do an episode?" And then I went and sort of met him and we chatted, but I didn't know exactly what it would be at that time. And then the offer came through, and I think I got a chance again to work with, like Francis Delator on that show and things.
Yeah.
And Catherine Tate. Most of my scenes were with Catherine Tate in that episode, so that's like, kid in a sweet shop type.
Oh,
stuff.
I bet, yeah.
And it was. I think the main thing I had to learn from that job was just not to break down laughing when someone says something funny on camera, because that's very difficult. Like when you're surrounded by those people.
I can imagine. Yeah, was it corpsing? I think, isn't it? When they
when I'm corpsing like crazy. I was
the 15th take and everybody wants to go for lunch, and you're just like, just please say this one line.
Absolutely, and I still, that's sort of 6 years removed now, and I still haven't got out of the habit. So
I think that's one of those things, though, isn't it? Like if you're surrounded by funny people and they're doing funny things, I guess that's
I think that's how you know the work is. It's good stuff. If you're laughing, then it must be good stuff.
Oh yeah, and here's a bit of TV trivia. So you were a contestant on Pointless Celebrities Comedians. Do you still hold a grudge against Terry for knocking you out in the first round?
Well, if we'd gone with my answer, not saying anything, but if we'd gone with my answer, we would have scored 3 and been comfortably through to the next round.
You would have, yeah.
But Terry's great, and he apologised a lot, and I think after a few letters cut out from magazines that I sent to his house, along with a few sharp objects, we patched it up and we're okay again.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, my parents are all about Pointless. They've reached that age where game shows are their sort of like go-to 24/7 now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, just shouting answers.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, just anything.
Who's the comedian's got a routine about that? About I can't remember who it is, so forgive me if you know it and I'm not crediting, but it's just about walking past people's windows as they're watching game shows. So they're just shouting stuff like Twix and John Cleese, stuff like that. You would wonder what's going on if just discordant phrases.
I often wonder what's going on when my parents are sat in front of their TV watching quiz shows.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's kind of like a fish. It's sort of like trivia, sort of like Goldfish Bowl in a way.
Yeah, I think it is that. But yeah, Pointless was fun because my grandma and granddad really liked watching that, so it was a nice thing to do for they were sort of looking forward to me popping up on that, and it's a shame I went out in the first round. But again, as we've discussed, not my fault.
Am I right in thinking you're still working on Trolley?
Yeah, the last episode of Trolley went out at Christmas, so we did 7 series and a feature-length Christmas special.
Oh, so you're done and dusted.
Yeah, we've finished that now.
Yeah.
But we went out on a massive high, and that's to play a small part in what is a huge show in British comedy, and besides my Britain's Got Talent and my stand-up stuff, that's the thing I get stopped most for in the street. So it's obviously, I can tell it's resonated with people a lot, and people like it. So to be able to give that a good send-off after working on it for so many years was amazing, and a really, really excellent cast as well.
I was going to say, when you worked side, was it Jason Watkins, hope I'm pronouncing it right, Faye McKeever and Dominic Coleman. So I was just wondering, was there a friendly competition on set of who could nail the funniest bit on set?
Yeah, I think and Stephen Tompkinson as well. Thanks, he's great, Steve Tompkinson. And I don't know about competition. I think again it was one of those things where it seemed like a real communal thing of people just trying to make the best thing that they could. And I think that was the nice thing, that even though there were huge names in the show, we all felt like because it's an ensemble, there was a real feeling of equality throughout the thing.
Have you ever been in an experience where people have been like trying to be like competitively funny, like they have to be funnier? And I can imagine that can be quite detrimental to something being funny if somebody's trying to be. Is that anything?
Yeah, I think there's that symptom of like trying to have to be the funniest person in the room and being on all the time, which is exhausting both for the person and the people around them. And I fall into the trap of doing it sometimes, but you've just got to watch yourself, I think, and go, is this actually conducive to a nice environment, or am I just being aggressive and masking it in the veil of humour? I think that is a bit of a danger sometimes, but you sort of wonder if you let those people burn out, then you can get on with the job.
Right, I see. Yeah, that's sort of like you give them an hour and then they can't, like they're done.
Yeah.
And then you can like slide in and do the work.
No one can sustain mania for more than an hour. They'd be dead.
The interesting thing about like comedy, or if you do like a sport or something, is that you have these sort of like set of skills you can sort of like slide into like other sort of like social settings. Is that something you find yourself doing when you maybe like out and about, or do you feel when you run into people that you feel there's some sort of responsibility to, you're not on the clock, but to entertain and make people laugh?
Yeah, I would say so, and it's just about keeping that balance really, so you can still locate self when you need to. In your quiet moments, you go, I need to actually locate who I am rather than this sort of weird mishmash of comedy thing that I've built up. So I think it's just about keeping that balance between keeping people happy and having a laugh and being playful, and then also not taking the whole I'm the comedy guy too far, because then you lose the humanity, which is the thing that creates the comedy in the first place, and
the thing that people connect with, I guess, as well, because I think there's a lot of, I can think of some very high levels of like, I guess, comedic actors where you're like, they're very sort of proficient and technical, but seem to have lost the humor or the humanity, or it is just purely work. There's nothing for like an audience, I guess, like subconsciously to sort of latch onto or identify with. It just feels very performative in a way.
Yeah, I think there is an evolutionary subconscious thing towards the truth of a situation, isn't there? And audiences are pretty good at sniffing it out.
They're just doing it for the money. So that's something I did want to touch on, because you did start really, really young, and I'm assuming that there weren't many 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds that were making the kind of money you were at the time. And we do live in the era of Rob Brydon, who does make £1 million, I've heard, recording voiceovers for P&Q Ferries in his basement. How do you pick and choose the things that you say yes to?
Fee is a big part of it.
Right. No, you're like, yeah,
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, I know he's a dictator who cut 3 people's hands off last week, but he's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy, crucially, with money to burn. So, no, but I think you do have to be mindful of striking a balance between making a living in order to be able to fund the work that you do and doing stuff that you care about. So I think like it's just that balance between, all right, that's one for everyone else, now I'll do one for myself.
Because I was always thinking, my thing is like people have this notion of like selling out, and especially in the comedy world, oh no, you're selling out if you do like a cornflakes voiceover or something.
Yeah, it's a strange like dance in a way, and it's one you've got to watch because you don't want to go too far either way really. But if you see me on a golf course with Jimmy Tarbuck,
yeah,
you'll know I've tipped over the edge. Jack started wearing knitted sweaters.
Yeah, and they've got the old fake tan and the old gold chains on.
Yeah, that's it. I'll just be doing Bob Monkhouse gigs. Yeah, that no, but I think that is a thing that you've, and maybe not even so much now, but as I hopefully develop in my career, is a thing that I may have to watch.
Life outside of comedy. So you're 20, well-paying job, social media clout. How do you relax, Jack?
So I would usually say going out to the pub, but I've sort of stopped drinking for the last 4 months in any sort of heavy way. So that's out.
Okay.
I go to the gym. I work out most days.
Right.
And I also do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 3 times a week.
Oh, nice.
So that's good, I think, for a problem-solving aspect and a physical aspect. I think that keeps you, and also an ego aspect. It's hopefully keeps you honest if you get beaten up 3 times a week.
Yeah, if you like, if you don't, you realize like if you don't tap, they're probably going to snap it off. So I guess
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you an MMA fan? Is that something you're into as well?
Yeah, I'm into MMA and boxing and football. So yeah, I'm also a big Leeds United fan, so I'll go to the football on a Saturday as well.
Do they invite you to, take a tour that perhaps the general public wouldn't do, or get you more involved in the more sort of social media aspect side of things as well, like meeting the players?
I've done a few of them things. I'd still sit in my usual seat because I like the cut and thrust of a proper football atmosphere.
Right.
But yeah, they're good at Leeds United. I think I'm grateful to them for some of the opportunities, corporate wise and things that I've had there, and I'm sort of, semi well known in the club and things. So I feel at home at that place as much as anywhere.
Oh yeah, that must be really nice.
Yeah, especially since I've been going since I was 4 years old. So it's really nice to be accepted by them.
So I can imagine you've had a few people, like a few girls, like sliding into your DMs, sort of fan messages. What's like the craziest thing?
Nothing too crazy. I haven't had anyone like threatening to turn up outside my house and cut my head off. But I would be grateful for that level of affection and commitment. But no, I think again that's another hurdle that you've got to learn to deal with as much as anything. But there's been nothing too crazy. Yeah, no, I've nothing. No one offering to like buy my kidneys or anything.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah, I hadn't started an illegal organ donation.
No, or like people asking for your hair or like a sweaty T-shirt, anything like that.
Yeah, that's we were talking about commerce earlier.
That's true.
A definite sideline.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could set up I guess like an eBay or something. Oh no, merch store. Get your own website, merch store, and you could sell sweaty T-shirts.
Yeah, lovely.
On there, make a couple of quid.
Yeah, I think I'd make more from that than I do from comedy, probably.
Maybe. I mean, it's definitely global, like transcends all language.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no mistranslation. You know what you're getting with the sweaty T-shirt.
You do. So after Eaten by Lions, which is released on the 29th of March, you've done the red carpet, you've given your last interview. What's the fondest memory you're going to take away from your time making the film in Blackpool? I
think ultimately the laughs, probably, I would say, and getting to work with people in comedy that I really respect, such as Johnny Vegas and Asim Chowdhury and Kevin Eldon and Vicky Pepperdine and and knitting and Haley and those sort of people in the cast is like their landmark moments, I think.
It's a really amazing cast. Now, I must say, I've got to shout out Vicky as the aunt. That character, oh my God! Like that, I saw that. It's like, how can you be that unpleasant?
Yeah, that means she's doing her job.
A few fun questions to finish off. Okay, so I have to ask, what is your favourite menu item from Greg's?
Steak bake. I've had one this morning, actually.
Oh, nice.
Synchronicity.
Just the single steak bake, or do you like to double up?
Oh no, single steak bake. I'm not a maniac.
I mean, they are like 5,000 calories, so I guess like one's enough.
One's enough.
Best place in West Yorkshire?
Best place in West Yorkshire, Ellen Road, the home of Leeds United.
Great. Who is Stan Collymore?
Well, Stan Collymore is a man who's blocked me for no reason on Twitter. He is also a dogger and an alleged domestic abuser. So if I wasn't blocked before, I definitely will be now.
You're going to start the feud, the beef that came from like a podcast.
There is no beef because I've been blocked. He won't hear or see anything that I've done.
I remember seeing the was it Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City clip, and they're like he's like Stan Collymore, Stan, like who?
Yeah.
Stan
Collymore? Yeah, it's great, isn't it, that? But yeah, I don't know why Stan Collymore blocked me, because I think he's quite an interesting bloke, and it'd be good to read his tweets.
I think he wrote a book, Conquering My Demons, in 2005, and he's also in like Basic Instinct 2, and then he's also like a football pundit on RT now as well. So he's had a very eclectic career, Stan Collymore.
Yeah, I think it's he's a difficult guy to pin down, and that's not a cue for an Ulrika Johnson gag, but I think he is difficult. So I would like to read his tweets, but I've been unfortunately I've been told I got added to like a block list. So it's a list of verified accounts that a PR agency has said he won't agree with, so they just randomly block people.
Oh, really? What's keywords? And they're like, if you say the keyword, then they just block you.
Yeah, then they just block you. And that, because I've never had any correspondence with Stan, and it's a shame. Maybe not a shame now. I've ridiculed him on a podcast that I won't be able to in the future.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one day, he'll explain why he blocked you. You can patch it up over a pint, perhaps, and then he can tell you stories of his time on Basic Instinct 2 working with Sharon Stone.
Absolutely. Okay. A great night. And if you need an idea for a second podcast, then that's probably it.
You know what? You think you'd be a great second guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
There's a lot to dive into, and he kind of already has Liam Neeson himself. So
there's no danger of him plumbing any further depth.
So, final question: the one film and television show that you can't live without?
It's a tie between, as far as TV goes, right? If I name one, I have to name the others. The Sopranos, The Office, I'm Alan Partridge, The League of Gentlemen, and Peep Show. As far as film goes, Trainspotting. As far as film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the first, I think I watched 5 minutes of the second one, but the first one was just I think Danny Boyle is such like a sort of like punk infused filmmaker, and there was such a sort of a mania to that movie. And the music is incredible, like the cinematography, like it was like a perfect storm of all these great elements.
Absolutely. I think that's what I get from that as well.
What was the thing about that particular story that sort of that appeals to you? Well, I mean, appeals is sort of a strong word about heroin addicts, but what was it about that sort of you?
It didn't make me want to go out and do heroin, contrary to Christian commentators on the movie. But I think it's just the idea that people are constantly trying to define themselves, and then having to go out and try and redefine themselves, and that sort of search for meaning in life is a big sort of theme in that thing, I think, that movie.
Well, going back to the very beginning, from when you sort of started the meaning of what you were doing to like now, I guess like you're always trying to refine or reassert or refocus that sort of meaning as you continue through life and through you have sort of experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge part of the human experience.
Brilliant. Well, Jack, thank you so much for spending an hour with me on the podcast talking about Eaten by Lions, which is out on the 29th of March in cinemas in the UK.
Absolutely. It's been great chatting, Tom. I think it's been a real laugh, and we've got to the bottom of some stuff, and I've plugged the movie, so all good.
So there you have it. I had a great time chatting with Jack. Please do like and subscribe to the show on SoundCloud and YouTube and drop a comment or two. And you can get in touch with me at the Salmoning01 on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Tom, and I'll catch up with you next episode.